people here. We got a big CRO, biz dev guy from a CRO here. We got an entrepreneurial job recruiter. Corporate recruiter works with a lot of big CROs, right?
Yes.
We have a lady who started her own IRB.
And stole it.
And did not steal it. Sold it. Very impressive. So let's get into everyone's story. I guess we'll start with Salvador first. Who are you and how did you get started in research and what is your current role right now?
So I do business development and marketing for a company by the name of WCCT, which stands for West Coast Clinical Trials. WCCT is a phase 1 facility up in Cyprus, so about 85% of what we do is trials in healthy volunteers. I started out in that company supporting our recruitment department, so whereas a lot of research sites maybe assign the task of recruiting to their CRCs or other
so
staff.
a lot of the stuff we talked about with Amir about the SEO you were doing.
Yeah, actually, it's primarily a marketing, utilizing marketing tactics. So there was a lot of social media, advertising, search engine involved there. Like you mentioned, article writing, creating, videos, explainer videos, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was my first foray into research was through marketing, but I've taken on a couple other roles at the company.
You see so many people get their start recruiting page, marketing, so very interesting. And what do you do now? What is biz dev for a big CRO like this?
Not that big of a CRO, but I represent our company to device and pharma companies that are headquartered in the Southwest U.S. And Canada for some weird reason. But pretty much Thousand Oaks to San Diego, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Texas. So just working with them, fielding their requests, and really I call it internal, whereas you do matchmaking kind of externally. I call it internal matchmaking because clients meaning pharma companies and sponsors. I use those terms interchangeably. They have requests, and sometimes their questions are medical in nature, scientific, technical, or financial in nature, and it really is just a matter of connecting them with the right people within my organization to give them the answer they need. And if I can do that successfully, then I increase my chances that they'll sign the dotted line.
Very good. You're giving out studies later to sites?
Are we giving out studies to sites?
Yeah.
So it really depends, and like I said, we're not a very big...
If you want to study, raise your hand. Right now, from Salvador,
certainly if you're in the Southern California area and you have sites or doctors that have experience in, we only operate as a CRO in a couple of areas.
Okay.
In ophthalmology, GI, and renal impairment, then certainly speak to us. But beyond that, we're really focused on phase 1 healthy volunteer trials.
Very good. So meet up Salvador right after. Okay, Jesalyn.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Jesalyn from Houston, Texas, and I actually got my start in clinical research by accident, as Dan loves to say. I actually did travel consultant as an EMR personnel, and one of the hospitals I supported or trained, I should be more specific, they were actually doing a clinical trial, and I literally was just excited and intrigued by it. So I started asking questions, and I started learning more about it. And I did a lot of the videos both Dan and Chris had on YouTube. I started soaking up as much information as I could gather about clinical research, and then started volunteering. I did a number of patient recruiting and clinical trial assistance for some local sites in my area. And now I've noticed a need that I've decided that I'm purposing to fulfill, which is playing matchmaker for clinical trial organizations, CROs and sites. Exactly. We actually networked and we are going to hopefully get something started ASAP. But basically I'm playing matchmaker for sites and CROs, and clinical research personnel. So I'm working on the proper term to coin it. So the clinical research Cupid, I don't know, maybe y'all can help me with something. So,
Oh, yeah, you mean,
but,
yeah.
yeah, so.
Ask him here, he can do the SEO keyword for you.
There you go. So I'm going to need to talk with you about that.
Clinical research Cupid.
So help me out, y'all. And yes, I'm conscious if I
Plenty of
say y'all.
CRAs.
What?
Plenty of CRAs, like plenty of fish.
Good, that's a good one.
That is a very good one.
Okay. So I'm taking notes.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Potential. Okay, Michelle, tell us please about yourself. Who you are, how you got started. You have a very interesting story. Entrepreneur,
Yeah.
created an IRB, sold it. Okay, so let's take it all the way back. How did you get it started?
So, funny story. So I always say my background is in hairdressing because I grew up in a household where my mother was a cosmetologist and my sister was a cosmetologist. And so I, right out of high school, got my manicuring license and hated it. I was allergic to the chemicals, but I loved the business side of things. So I started telling the group of girls I went to high school with that I wanted an office job, and one of my girlfriend's mother ran an IRB, and it was just something that she ran out of her home. So she hired me because she wanted someone without any experience so she could train her to do things the way she wanted them done, and had been through a few assistants, and I hit the jackpot. I met a woman who taught me everything there was to know about the IRB world, and it was about the time, I'm going to really date myself, computers came out, and she wasn't very technically savvy, which I'm not anymore either, but we had a little like dot matrix computer, and we did, right? We did all it was orange with the, and we would, at the IRB, we would, get the consents on a paper form, and we would mark them up after the IRB collaborated, and then we would send it back and tell them to make their changes, and then send them back, and this would go back and forth. And I'm like, can't we just do this for them? There's got to be a better way to do this quicker. And so she paid me to go to a junior college and take some computer classes, and next thing you know, she didn't know how to do anything because I was running the whole office and telling her how to do things better, quicker, faster, but she did teach me all about the FDA regulations. And so I just got in young and worked hard and did what I was told, and
So you did steal it.
asked a lot of questions. Well, so that's the next part of my funny story. She retired a few years after she hired me, and because of the job market at the time, they couldn't afford somebody with an RN or a college education at the time, so they said, well, we're going to just let you take it over. So I was probably, 23, 24 years old, and making like $13 or $15 an hour. I don't remember what to run this IRB.
Yeah.
Who at the time then had maybe a couple other part-time people that helped us out. And then I worked there for 13 years, running that IRB, and grew it to, a couple $1 million a year IRB, and then left with a couple other ladies that I worked with because we wanted to just start an IRB because we wanted to, do things better and, more current with technology, and just, we liked what we did. Everything that we knew was in our head, so we just started an IRB from scratch, which was kind of great because I've heard a lot of people talk about knowing how to do every job within a company, and so I've done everything from answer the phones to, basically run the company. So I felt that was key in hiring people and growing the company once we started Aspire.
Aspire was the name of the IRB.
Aspire IRB, yes.
Aspire
So we started in 2004, and then we were acquired in 2014 by the Word Copernicus Group.
Wow, very good, congrats. So we'll get back to, now you're in work. What is your current role in work, actually?
So a lot of the components of my job were taken over by the corporate entity once we were acquired. So they said, we're going to put you in a business development role. And I thought, okay, sure. Yeah, I thought, okay, sure, I'll do that for a couple years till, my agreement runs out and go from there. But a lot of what I did as a small business owner was sell the company. And I always enjoyed networking and going to conferences and, collaborating with peers, sharing information. I had, ironically, my biggest mentor in the industry was John Isidore, who co-founded Schulman IRB.
Yeah.
And
Didn't they get acquired too?
So yeah, they're at Vara now.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
but he, we became friends, and we had an organization called the Consortium of Independent Review Boards, and he used to always say, if one of us looks bad, we all look bad, so we need to help each other out and, do things the right way, because if one of us ends up on CNN, we're all going to get the bad name. So I was just sort of mentored along with other people in the industry that believed on information sharing. So I'd like to give you kudos for this event, because this has been great, and there's a lot of power in information sharing and helping one another, as sites do a better job.
And you have a meetup also in San Diego, right? Do you have a...
So yeah, we have a local chapter of ACRP that I'm on the board for, and we have a one-day symposium coming up on September 27th, I think, a Friday.
Oh, very good. So
And
if you're
then-
watching or listening or if
Yeah,
you're from San
we need a
Diego-
speaker too. We just had somebody
Chris.
cancel on MDR.
Chris doesn't go on to speak.
And then I've started doing, because mentoring women trying to get into the clinical research industry, which is much harder than I thought it was, which is how I
What do
met.
you think about it?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's intense.
But it's mostly women in this industry.
Well, they've had to really, really work hard to get in.
Yeah, we were talking with Dr. Hazen about that earlier.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more challenging, and we actually talked about that earlier in the morning, how you're going to literally need to have some kind of a discussion or a talk in terms of the pharmaceuticals making more compromises, I would say, to allow people to be able to come in, because you need people to do the studies. But you
Yeah,
have
they
all
want
these
the experience.
requirements, right?
Yeah.
And no one can get that experience until you give them a chance to get
Do
that
you
experience.
hire research naive people? You need to give them a chance.
Well, we do. We actually more often bring up a lot of people, so plenty of folks start off as drawing blood, collecting urine samples, entering data, and now they're, assisting the site director, now they're doing proposals, or I've seen people grow into heads of BD, so we tend to bring up our own people.
That's good. That's the way to do it. So what have you been noticing from the candidates reaching out to you? And then actually, let's take it to the site. Do you place experienced coordinators at sites?
So I try to do both experience and the research naive, as you specifically referenced. I do both, and it really does depend on the site at the end of the day, because I can get people for days, but then I need to have a place to put them in. So it doesn't work well if I just gather people
Yeah.
and then there's no place for me to place them. So it really does fall back to the sites at the end of the day in terms of what they're looking for, what criteria they're looking for. Are they willing to take research minded people and put in the time and effort to train them and cultivate them and give them a chance to learn and to grow and to show that they are indeed as passionate and dedicated as they actually are.
What are you seeing from vendor? And I know but however much you can talk about what they're doing, they're getting into a lot of this technology stuff as well. So I don't know how much you can share, but where's the industry headed as far as the work is concerned?
So WCG Clinical, we were approached by another company before WCG, and at the end of the day, it didn't feel right. What I loved about WCG is that our CEO is very passionate about ethics being at the core of everything we do, and then also that identifying what pain points are in clinical trial study startup, and then
Now study startups important to them.
yeah, so we have technically six IRBs. We acquired Hummingbird IRB too that operates under the New England IRB office. But outside of that, we own 28, almost 29, I think, companies that outside of the 5-6 IRBs, they're all clinical trial solution, site feasibility, site contracts, budgets, and payments, We do some pharmacovigilance, data safety monitoring boards. We also have a market insight division, Center Watch, FDA News. Most recently, we bought the Magi Conference,
Yeah.
Pharmaseek, which is
Pharmacy also. I didn't know that.
that was just a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Wow. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
This is good.
It's been on LinkedIn. You're all over
Really?
LinkedIn. That's how I met you. I saw you walking down the hall at DIA. I'm like, there's the LinkedIn guy. I need to meet
Okay.
him.
Interesting. So with more studies, like is WERB hiring more research naive people? Are they looking to Jesslyn to bring experienced people?
So I think they do a combination of both. From what I hear, we do have a whole HR team, but they also do work with some recruitment companies. Another one of the companies we have is Threewire. I don't know if any of you sites have worked or had Threewire come in. That's a WCG company as well.
They're like a CRA contracting?
No, they help with subject recruitment, and one of the things they do is actually place enrollment assistants at the site to help the sponsors recruit for their specific trial.
Interesting. Enrollment assistant.
Yeah, so
Huh.
I believe that enrollment assistants, they hire through some staffing companies.
Ah, there you go. You
Yeah.
find enrollment assistant.
I'm going to look into that.
They're called enrollment assistants.
See, everything's patient recruitment.
But we have a WCG website that has all of our job postings. I'm in business development, so I don't really hear about hiring or how they go about it. But
We've never had an enrollment specialist in our site. They would be welcome.
yeah, so
They get free recruitment.
it's free recruitment. Yeah.
That's fantastic, actually. Have you guys had that?
We actually have had Threewire at our site before.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they good? Can we see? Were they helpful?
Yeah, I'm not on that side of things,
Okay.
so I don't
Yeah, I'm just
I don't
curious.
know. I mean, as you said, they were welcome. They helped us out.
Yeah.
But it was really just like one study, short-term kind of thing. So I don't think we really had time to develop a long relationship with them, but we enjoyed their help while they were with us.
Yeah, that's a new one for me. I don't know if anyone else has had Threewire. We've had Threewire and Global,
Yeah, I guess we did it for an assignment study, but it didn't work for us.
but they came in the office.
Oh, no, it was for another study that they came to the office, but it was for a study with, when? Remember that they went?
Because this is new to me, but they send somebody to the site and they like work there.
And it's under a business associate agreement, so you can,
That's awesome.
yeah. So they.
How do we get one?
Your sponsors, it's funded by the sponsors, so.
Actually, sorry to interrupt, but we did it for the Otsuka study.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, they're a great company.
You ever compete for this? Okay. Wow. Missing out.
Yeah, so I think WCG buys quality companies, and I think they, have done a good job of identifying what the problem areas are, and then going out and finding a company that is sort of the best in that space. And so it's been really,
Now, for the sites here that are asking about, because the thing we always get asked, and I don't know if you can comment, but just give us your opinion. Your opinions are yours and that of WCG.
yeah.
When sites advertise, do they need IRB approval all the time?
So it's kind of what Andrew was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
If there's just advertising their site, is that acceptable, or do you need IRB approval for that?
The only thing you really don't need approval for is interviews like this.
Okay, so we'll do
Unscripted interviews. If it's being used to recruit for a study, then technically you do. Even generic recruitment, we're getting a lot of generic site recruitment campaigns from sites, like Andrew mentioned, but there's not a lot that doesn't fall under IRB oversight, but yeah,
Sorry.
That's
so,
okay.
Say I wanted to advertise my site, just in general. You're saying that requires IRB approval. Can I get basically an in general IRB approval?
yes.
Or I just pay you to approve my site to run advertising that's specific to any campaign?
Right,
Yeah? Can you
Yeah.
get approval for that?
yes.
Yeah, you can get general ads. I was listening in on that one earlier. I think that where the kind of the challenges is, yes, you can use study budgets, you can try to use study budgets creatively, but at the end of the day, if your client is requiring metrics, they want to see how their money is being spent, especially with platforms as transparent as Facebook and Google. Try saying that. Oh yeah, I used your study budget for general ads, and that person that we brought in, they actually went to this other study. How are you going to justify that? I don't think that's going to fly.
Right.
And that's kind of the pushback that we're met with.
Especially as a CRO, that's going to be a huge pushback for you guys.
Yeah, so if you can swing it, fine. I personally wouldn't recommend it to other sites. I would say
So keep the budget just for that study, and
Just for
get
that
IRB
study.
approval every time.
yeah, and find the money internally to market your own site
The general stuff.
in the general
Yeah, I think that's a
sense.
good rule.
But I thought what you recommended about doing the videos and you know,
SEO
interviews.
stuff, yeah.
I mean, it's
That's
it's
branding,
unscripted.
that's different, and that's
Yeah.
free. That's free. And then you know which one works, and then you can run that as an ad, and you can use your own money, because you know it works
Mhm.
organically, so it's gonna work as an ad too.
Mhm.
I think that's the way to go. Oh, question?
Yeah, I was going to ask Michelle, what would be the benefit of a site to pass it through the IRB, like some kind of general ad?
What would be the benefit?
Yeah.
Well, if you were audited by the FDA, you would have, if they asked for you to show documentation
It's
of,
not just the FDA though, it's the sponsor as well.
Sponsor, yeah.
So,
The CRA.
in that vein, if I have a general ad placed, and an IRB approval for that, then the central IRB for the study at my site takes issue with that. If I show them your approval, they would accept that? Do all IRBs accept all other IRB's approvals?
well, if it's generic, you technically only have to get one IRB's approval, so.
Yeah. Just like sponsors have to get IRB and IRB to oversee a study. When it comes to ads, it's the same thing.
But I can see where a sponsor would take issue, right? Or say you have, for whatever reason, you get a regulatory audit, right? An IRB takes issue with your ad. They run this ad through the regulatory vendor. And they see that approval there, they would accept that.
If it's generic, they should,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's another IRB.
yeah.
Any other questions about recruitment? It's good. But it's rare to have an IRB person be so transparent.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I
Something
haven't
to
been, I haven't been in IRB operations for 10, a little more than 10
You're doing
years.
biz dev now.
Yeah, and
What is
really.
your role? Like, what are you doing?
So I manage the smaller IRBs, Aspire, the IRB that I co-founded, Midlands IRB in Kansas City, and New England IRB that Dr. Hazen talked about earlier in Boston. And then by nature of the academic affiliation, I do assist BD with Western IRB as well. So I get to go around and talk to small to medium-sized biotech, biopharma. We do a lot of phase 1, so WCCT is someone we've worked quite a bit with, as well as a lot of the phase 1 centers throughout the U.S. So I've developed a strong relationships with sites, but I just get to go around and talk to a lot of companies about, IRB oversight. They usually hear that the IRB is the first thing you need to do. We get a lot of like med device companies, and they're like, yeah, we have this device and we need an IRB approval, and they don't even have a protocol, So I'm like, no, you really need a lot more than an IRB, and so I can kind of direct them in the right place. And so everyone needs an IRB if you're going to conduct a clinical trial. So it's not really a hard sell, and most often it's just helping people, get to where they need to be. And if I don't know the answers, I know where to get them. I think that's important in clinical research, is to be honest, and if you don't know something, to say you don't know it, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. So.
Very good. Any more questions from anybody? Anything else? Advice for people watching or here?
I have a generalized question.
Yeah.
How do you learn more? Can you suggest maybe your site just to learn more in general about IRBs?
understood,
Mhm.
unless you work in the industry, what is an IRB?
Mhm.
And then I think it's a great way for
Yeah.
research naive people to break in too, especially if you get into patient recruitment,
Yeah.
because IRB is directly related to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought that was a great idea about your clinical trial coordinator course.
CRC Academy, yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a free NIH module on human subject protection that
Still there. Oh no, it's $30.
Yeah, now it's not free, but that's a great resource. There's, I think,
Yeah, NIH protecting human research subjects. It's $30. Used to be free.
There's plenty of free GCT.
yeah, but we require at the IRB, the PI have, somebody brought up sub-Is too. We don't require 1572s or sub-Is to be approved anymore, by the way.
Throw out these numbers. So
Yeah.
what is that again?
The 1572, yeah, it's a
So contract with the FDA essentially.
IRB's don't.
And I find that where?
So I'm sorry, I digress. You want to know about training for IRB. It's a
Just
NIH,
to know about what, I mean,
yeah, the NIH,
just in general, what IRBs are, what they do.
OHR.
Who the big players, just to learn more about.
so you could go to probably any of our IRB websites and they would have, I can send you some information.
Okay.
The FDA Information Sheets, I used to call my IRB Bible because it's the FDA Information Sheets. If you just Google FDA Information Sheets, it should come up. It's all electronic now, and I used to have a bound copy that it's like falling apart because the FDA forever just had their regulations posted, and then, I don't know, it was like 2000 or 1999, they came out with a set of guidelines that sort of interpreted the regulations. So it's the FDA Information Sheets.
Conducted in a manner that protects subject rights, and that advertisements and any documents that are volunteer or patient facing are not what's the word, like coercive. They're communicating things like very transparently and not trying to hide any information because
Make sure the protocol's safe.
right, yeah, because getting people involved in research is a cell of its own, right? Everybody here, well, not everybody, but a lot of us have familiarity with recruiting people and the difficulty there. Even for us in phase one, it can be difficult because it's like, you haven't put that thing in any other human before and you want to put it in me, and I'm like, yeah, we do. That's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
But that's my summary of what an IRB does at its core is they ensure that subject rights are protected before, during, after the conduct of the study.
So it's like the Geneva Convention for clinical trial subjects. Sort of.
Wasn't that ICH?
Yeah, it's GCT. We'll give you a copy of the book because there's like a bunch in there.
You get a copy and you get
There's a bunch of books too on the history of ethics, and but basically out of several events that occurred in our history, the Nuremberg Code and the Milgram studies, was a lot of situations where subjects' rights and welfares were taken advantage of, and out of that came the regulations for human subject protection in the early 70s.
Yeah.
But so these are international.
They're federal.
I mean, like what about locally? Like,
So every country would have their own human subject protection rights. We could do a whole day class about this, by the way.
And you do.
How much
Yeah.
time do you have?
So the U.S. federal regulations on human subject protection, we have the FDA, and then we have the NIH, OHA, under the OHRP. But we also have ICH guidelines, which are worldwide, but every country has their own ethics rules and regulations. So, one of the things that our larger IRB, Western IRB, will do is consult and help companies learn what the ethics requirements are for each specific country. Some defer to ICH. It just depends. It's pretty in-depth.
So if you do have like a drug or device that is available worldwide, then it has already, the trials for that have gone through their ethics, each country.
Yes.
Okay, just curious. All right.
Some people for expense reasons, or there's a whole slew of reasons people would go outside of the U.S. for approval before coming to the U.S. So that's another whole day course too. Yeah.
It's actually hard to find this information. That's why we wrote that book. You don't even know, like most people don't even know where to look when they're starting out. So it's like almost impossible to find everything
Yeah.
unless somebody's showing you. But once you like hone in on a topic, there are courses, there's all kinds of information. That's knowing where to look. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I have my card, and I am happy to always share information. That's, I think, how I got to where I am today is by helping others. So if I don't work in operations anymore, and I'm in sales, but I'm always happy to point people in the right direction. So
We use a lot of abbreviations when we're talking.
yes,
today.
we're very heavy acronym.
And I've actually thrown
Industry.
out a few of those talking to other clinicians and nursing colleagues, we have no idea.
Yeah, it's like
And I said,
talking
I'm not sure that I know
English.
very much either, I think I have a little inkling, but, so it's one of those things that you have to be pretty, yeah, you have to know where to get it.
Well, yeah, even with me, with being with WCG, who has these IRBs, and then as we've grown, added all these technology-focused companies, they talk in a completely different language than the IRB world. So even within clinical research, different, divisions, there's a whole different set of acronyms. So.
And thought processes. So you work with some of the big companies hiring people. Often what they're looking for is not the same as what a smaller site is looking for, as I'm sure you've seen. So what are some of the differences between, like, let's say a big site and a smaller site as far as what they're looking for?
The biggest thing I've personally seen are the experience. And like I was sharing with her, the biggest thing I've seen personally has to do with the experience in the sense of they are really specific as to who they hire, the experience that they bring to the table. So I'm not talking about, okay, we're looking to hire a CRA. What therapeutic area are you experienced in? So if you're experienced CRA in dermatology, but you're trying to apply for an oncology trial, it's like, well, where's your experience in? And those are two different worlds. So they are really, really specific as to having people who are educated, who are trained, and definitely have the experience. And yes, they will check your background to make sure that you are who you say you are, and you have the experience you claim you have. So they are really, really, really particular about everything they require. They need you to have that. And prove and show the rightful proof that you do have that experience and you meet that criteria. So they're really particular. So the smaller companies I have noticed, they're just a little more lax in the sense that they're smaller, so they do need persons to fill in the positions that they have. So they're a little more open to receiving people and saying, okay, well, you're research naive. I can bring you in, give you the right training that you need to be able to get in and excel.
Yeah, be more of a generalist.
So yeah, they're a little more open. So.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Anything for pharmacists? Any potential opportunities for? We've got some pharmacy school people here. Me and Andrew are pharmacy school dropouts.
Volunteer to sit on an IRB.
Oh, did you hear that?
Oh,
Volunteer to be on the IRB.
So yeah, academics, hospitals have IRBs that you can volunteer for.
Can anyone volunteer?
I don't know. I mean, back in the day, I used to let people volunteer for my IRB all the time. I think now most central IRBs, it's a paid position. So if you're we see a lot of foreign MDs that don't technically have a physician's license in the US, or you're trying to get into clinical research, volunteer at an IRB or sit on an IRB board.
that's good.
Looks good on a resume.
Yep.
If, the majority of the time, do you find that, say, a CRA example has their one area, let's say oncology? Is it unusual to find someone who's maybe worked in oncology but has also worked in dermatology? So is it like once you have the experience, do you carry that sort of as a qualification, or do they say how many years deep are you in oncology? How many years deep are you in dermatology? I'm just wondering how they look at it.
So yes, it's still boiling down to how many years of experience you have in each of those. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, going into each of these therapeutic areas, You definitely have to know the protocol. You definitely have to know the in and out of the trials. You have a lot that you need to go through and understand for each therapeutic area. And it's time consuming to like learn and to work in these different areas. So it is possible to have multiple therapeutic areas that you're experienced in, but it takes time to build up that amount of strong experience within it.
Good. Anything else, Chris?
What would it cost to get a generalized ad approved? Ballpark.
Putting her on the spot.
$250.
That's it? Wow.
Could you repeat that?
Cost
It's
$250 to get a generalized ad approved for patient
By
recruitment
an RFP
by an IRB.
per piece, so
per ad.
per ad.
So that's, I mean,
Ish, that's,
just err on the side of caution.
So it's not expensive.
No.
When you utilize Andrew's services, it
yeah.
doesn't cost much.